You've probably heard people call Troll 2 the best worst movie ever made. But what if I told you this 1990 horror film wasn't even about trolls? What if I told you it was written as a satire about vegetarians, filmed in Utah with a bunch of random locals, and directed by an Italian filmmaker who barely spoke English? Welcome to the weird world of Troll 2. Let's dive into 17 bizarre facts you probably didn't know about this legendary disaster piece. Fact number 1. There are no trolls in Troll 2. The monsters are actually goblins, and not only that, they're vegetarian goblins. The writer, Rossella Drudi, said she wrote the script out of frustration with her vegetarian friends. She wanted to mock what she saw as the hypocrisy of people who claimed moral superiority because they didn't eat meat. So in the film, the goblins turn humans into plants before eating them, because of course that's still technically vegetarian. Fact number 2. Troll 2 was never supposed to be a sequel. The original title was simply Goblins, but when it was sold in the United States, distributors wanted to cash in on the modest success of the 1986 film Troll. So they renamed it Troll 2 without asking the director. Claudio Fragasso didn't even know about the title change until after the movie was finished. He was furious when he found out his movie was being marketed as a sequel to something completely unrelated. Fact number 3. The entire cast was made up of amateurs. Almost no one in Troll 2 was a professional actor. The film was shot in a small Utah town, and most of the roles were filled by locals who had never acted before. George Hardy, who played the dad, was literally a dentist. The mom was played by Margot Prey, who answered an open casting call she stumbled upon by accident. Many of the goblins were played by kids wearing rubber masks. It wasn't exactly Hollywood. Fact number 4. The script was written in broken English, and the director refused to let anyone change it. The actors begged to rewrite their lines so they would sound natural, but Fragasso wouldn't allow it. He insisted every word be spoken exactly as written. That's why the dialogue sounds so strange and robotic. Lines like, "You can't piss on hospitality," or "Are you nuts? Grandpa Seth is dead," were delivered word for word from an Italian to English translation that made no sense. Fact number 5. The young boy, Michael Stevenson, who played Joshua, was only 10 years old. He had no idea the film would go on to become one of the most mocked movies in history, but years later, he embraced it. In 2009, he even directed a documentary called Best Worst Movie, which reunited the cast and told the story of how Troll 2 accidentally became a cult classic. Fact number 6. The movie was shot entirely in Utah during the summer, but it was supposed to take place in the fall. The crew didn't have the budget for real seasonal effects, so they glued paper leaves to trees and sprinkled them on the ground. The problem was, it was over 30 degrees Celsius during filming, and the actors inside the goblin costumes nearly passed out from the heat. Fact number 7. Speaking of the goblins, their costumes were made from cheap latex and burlap. The masks had almost no ventilation, so the actors could barely breathe. Many of them could only see through tiny holes. You can actually spot some goblins tripping or bumping into walls in several scenes. They filmed long days in the Utah sun, drenched in sweat inside those rubber suits. Fact number 8. Nilbog, the town where the story takes place, is goblin spelled backward. That twist is revealed halfway through the movie, as if it's some huge revelation. But the audience catches on immediately. What's funnier is that most of the actors didn't notice it until someone pointed it out during filming. Fact number 9. The food in Troll 2 is as weird as the dialogue. The bright green frosting and slime that appears throughout the movie wasn't special effects material. It was just dyed corn syrup and oatmeal. The Nilbog milk was powdered milk mixed with food coloring. By the end of the shoot, everything smelled rotten, and the crew had to deal with flies constantly buzzing around the set. Fact number 10. The entire movie was filmed in just 3 weeks. It had a microscopic budget and a tiny crew, which meant there was no time for retakes. Most scenes were done in 1 or 2 takes, no matter how awkward they looked. If you've ever wondered why the acting feels so stiff and rushed, that's why. They simply didn't have the time or money to try again. Fact number 11. The infamous line, "They're eating her, and then they're going to eat me, oh my God," became one of the internet's earliest viral memes. The scene is so overacted and drawn out that it feels like a parody. But actor Darren Ewing, who delivered the line, was completely serious at the time. He thought he was doing intense horror acting. Now, decades later, that moment is one of the most recognizable in bad movie history. Fact number 12. The director and crew fought constantly. Fragasso didn't speak English fluently, and the local Utah crew didn't speak Italian. This led to endless confusion on set. Fragasso would shout orders in broken English that no one understood. When the cast or crew laughed at scenes they thought were ridiculous, he would get angry and yell, "You don't understand! This is art!" Fact number 13. The music in Troll 2 was actually kind of catchy. The synthesizer-heavy score was composed by Carlo Maria Cordio and gives the movie a weirdly upbeat, almost video game feel. The music never quite fits the tone of what's happening on screen, which makes every scene feel even more surreal. Fact number 14. The town of Nilbog was a real place. Sort of. They shot in a small Utah town called Morgan. The locals thought it was going to be a wholesome family movie. They happily volunteered to be extras, lent their homes as sets, and helped the crew however they could. When they finally saw the finished film, many of them couldn't believe what they had been part of. Fact number 15. When the movie was finished, no theaters wanted it. It went straight to VHS. For years, it sat in bargain bins, ignored and forgotten. But slowly in the early 2000s, fans started rediscovering it and sharing clips online. Midnight screenings began popping up, and people started showing up in costumes, quoting lines and treating it like the Rocky Horror Picture Show of bad movies. Fact number 16. Claudio Fragasso, the director, truly believed he had made a masterpiece. When audiences first laughed during screenings, he was offended. He thought they were mocking his vision. But over time, he realized the laughter was love. People weren't making fun of Troll 2 out of cruelty. They were celebrating it. It had become something magical in its own absurd way. Fact number 17. There is technically a Troll 3. Sort of. In 1990, another Italian director released a fantasy movie called Quest for the Mighty Sword. In some countries, it was marketed as Troll 3, even though it had absolutely no connection to either Troll or Troll 2. And believe it or not, it might be even worse. So what makes Troll 2 so special? Maybe it's the pure sincerity. Nobody on that set was trying to make a joke. Everyone gave it their all, and the result was something unforgettable. A movie so strange, so earnest, and so completely broken that it became immortal. Troll 2 is a cinematic accident, but it's also a reminder that passion, even when misplaced, can still create something legendary. And that's why, decades later, people still quote it, still laugh with it, and still love it, because deep down, we all have a little Nilbog inside us.